Chapter 5 Pear Deck. I changed the link for each class period. So I re-linked it to the week at a glance, and I'll show you where to find that here in a second. We're going to spend about 10-15 minutes doing that, just so I can see where everybody's at, kind of where you pick you need more work at, and kind of see how we're answering questions, especially a couple of them that were tricky. That I want to look at, where you had to drag a flag or this dot around. And then we're going to watch a daily video. I just want to keep reminding you that those exist, and you'll have whiteboards so that I can ask you questions in the middle of the videos. First period, we watched this one, 2.6 daily video 1 adaptations. In your class, we're going to watch 2.6 daily video 2 adaptations. So you can see where all of these are again on College Board. Your final will be on the College Board website. So we will do, I think it's not a very big final. It's like 30 questions, because I took all the ones that are not protected with like this shield that you're not allowed to use, that had to do with our chapters that we've covered so far. So I think it was right around 30 multiple choice, and then we'll do one FRQ. All right, then we're going to talk about this web worksheet if we have time, and then Kahoot or quizzes, which we didn't have time last period, but we'll see. I tend to get faster as I go. Okay, let's see. Under the classwork tab, under this week, I'll go there first, is your daily Google attendance form. So don't forget, you need to do that every day. And this week it's your learning targets. So it's basically having you rate yourself on the different targets for chapter 5. So for exemplary, you could teach in an original creative way to someone else who's not in class. Proficient, right? You can answer things on the Pear Deck and on the whiteboards and things like that. 2, you're developing, you need more practice on that topic. So you're having to look back at your notes or in your book to answer some of the questions being asked of you. And 1, you need help. So you need to be coming in conference time, getting more personalized one-on-one attention on that topic. Optional. Remember that more and more of you are taking advantage of it, but I'm still seeing it's kids that already have a B or better. Really would like to see those of you that do not have a B or better starting to do these Kahoots and quizzes and bringing up your assessment grades. There is no reason to not get a B or better in this class. There are tons of ways to bring your grade up before the end of semester. All right, book creator. This is a little different in terms of biomes. We are not doing the same way we did terrestrial biomes. What you're doing is going to page 133 to 138. I didn't feel like we really covered that with enough detail for what will be on your exam in May. So you are just basically making one slide per biome with the title of the biome, the aquatic biome, so whether it's a marsh or a lake, putting an image in there. Try to pick images that help you learn something about the topic. For example, if it has an image with the benthic zone versus the littoral zone, pick those kinds of images. And then plant and animal adaptations to living in that area. So an estuary versus something like freshwater. You know, what are some different adaptations that you might see? Or maybe you don't live where sun reaches, or you spend a lot of time deep in the benthic zone. What are some of those plant and animal adaptations for living in these aquatic zones? And then in your book, in bold, any key terms they represent that you don't know. So if you do know those terms, you do not need to waste time putting them on the book creator. This is something you can go back to study from. That is the whole point of it. So 10 pages, that's how many subheadings there are for different aquatic biomes by Sunday. I just was looking through that and realized that we really didn't do enough with those different zones and those different aquatic areas. Your FRQ is a math FRQ. The content of this has nothing to do with this chapter. It's actually on renewable energy, but there's more than 5 points possible just for knowing how to do the math. So this, we're just going to keep going back to this math and practicing it. So you have your link for it and then your key for it. Chapter 5, this is for when you're on your own. So today you're going to use a different link. So this is going to have a slightly different address. So I know those of you that are doing this on the on-demand days versus today. And then Ed Puzzles, there's one per day, so 5 by Sunday. And it does say one should be about renewable energy. That's just to help you if you do want to get more than 5 points right on the content part of the question. Renewable energy and energy will not be till spring chapters. All right, so that's your classwork tab. Your targets are down here at the bottom. Can you guys see my screen? Someday I'll get over being paranoid about that. Learning targets are right here. I did rearrange things because I really didn't like the template we were given at the beginning of the year. So I fixed it over winter break. Number 1, identify the processes that cause genetic diversity. So what are some things that make us all diverse? So these things like mutation, these things like sexual reproduction that mix up the genes, and meiosis, the actual process of those genes crossing over and then pulling apart and rearranging. So what are those processes and how do those create diversity? And then explain how evolution can occur if it's artificial versus natural. So natural selection, nature's selecting who's living and who's dying, right? And over time we see the best adapted, versus artificial, humans are deciding. So they are picking a certain trait that they want to selectively breed to increase that trait in the population. So it is artificial because we are creating that. And then, and we all know that chihuahuas and things like that would, right, not be out there in nature. They would be eaten in one bite. Or as my husband says of my parents' little dog that's this big, it's not a dog. Like, it is a dog, but we created it. All right, and then explain how evolution can occur through random processes. So a lot of times students get it in their head, the wording of how they explain evolution, and that's headed in a certain direction. And so I want to make sure that we understand kind of how to phrase this and talk about this. So we're going to look at a daily College Board video and look at how to word evolution and genetic frequencies changing over time. So tasks and assessments that get us to these targets. So you're going to do Pear Deck practice today, and on your on-demand day, you're going to do your FRQ, but that's mainly to practice for some math. And then Kahoots and Quizzes, this will be hyperlinked to later in the week. And then your speciation web work. I wanted to try to find an activity we could do that was specifically going to go over allopatric versus sympatric speciation. I couldn't find much. This is just more like an interactive web worksheet. I will show it to you. I really liked it because of the second part that has examples of all these different events that can happen that can make two species quit mating, which is called reproductive isolation. So when you quit seeing each other as the same species and you quit reproducing, that's called reproductive isolation. And over time, you become separate species, but there's a lot of different ways that can happen. So a lot of times we get caught up in having a river separating you and getting into cold versus warm, or the kind of the middle school geographic isolation that can happen, but it can be anything. It can be coming out of hibernation at a slightly different time, so you never see each other, like with frogs, do that quite a bit. Or maybe you're a bird and you quit singing the right song, right? And if you don't sing the right song, I'm not going to mate with you. So there's behavioral isolations too. So this worksheet is going to get at all these kind of really different ways that species quit reproducing with each other. All right, so looking ahead, tomorrow you're doing your speciation web work. Time it for 30 minutes. This is brand new that I just found it. You'll even see on a lot of these documents that it says this is geared for remote learning because of the pandemic. So I don't know if it's really going to take you only 30 minutes. So just time it and let me know. If it takes longer than that, then we'll have to adjust. And then chapter 5 Pear Deck, what we're going to do today. And then your FRQs. It says, look ahead, chapter 5 test will be next week, most likely Wednesday, posted on Launchpad. And then day 2 live Zoom, we will be doing a short competition to kind of review chapter 5. We'll also go and work on our composting projects. There's a little kind of separate section in your book this week called Sustainability Protecting Our Oceans. And one of the activities I want to do in our future is about tragedy of the commons. Oopsie, I forgot to turn on my light. Where you guys all become fishermen through time. So you look both at cultural changes and how people approach fishing from a cultural perspective, but also historical and technology. So you increasingly get better technology, which also changes your approach. Why can't I get this turned on? There. All right. So we will come back to this later, this idea of sustainability and protecting our oceans and conservation. So you'll see a couple random videos that are about conservation, specifically for the ocean. And that's what that's about. It's getting at that little section in your chapter 5. And then Pear Deck again, and aquatic biomes. All right, let's do this. You need to go to your week at a glance. You need to go to this hyperlink where it says student paced 15 minutes, and you need to click on it because that will take you to the actual one that I have open, and I can see everybody working on at once. So if you could go to that one, and I will show you, if you were on the roster, you will show up. Oh, where did I lose you guys again? There you are. So click on that week at a glance where it says student paced, and then that will take you into the right Pear Deck for today. So I see you all getting on your week at a glance. That's good. It's the first step. Get to that slide 18 and then get to student paced hyperlink right there. And that will put you into what I'm looking at now, which is the Pear Deck. Is it turned on? This counts towards today's Pear Deck. So every one is different link, but the same topic. Mine's loading. Says it doesn't work. That is not surprising because mine's not working either. Turn off student pace. No. Okay, so just a second. I'm going to put something right into your. I'm going to put something right into, it says to email them. Okay, so let me fix yours. I think you're right. I think it's my dashboard. One second. Oh, you can also do it. I bet you can do it this. So let me give you the right link. I'm a little slow at learning Pear Deck because it's brand new, but I think that will work. Email us an error report. Okay. Okay, I see what's happening to you guys. All right, so now it's good. All right, so I see 15, 16 of you now. So when I click on this roster should match my Zoom roster, which says 31 of you should be showing up over here. And then just scroll through to wherever you left off last week. So we've been focusing on cladograms of phylogenetic trees. There is a tricky one that I kind of want to see what you're answering and what you're doing with it. Where is that one? Let's put which slide number that one was. It was about evenness versus richness. I went too far. Slide 14 is the tricky one. So if you're not sure what to do, go back and read the definition, and then we'll talk about that one too. Yes, the pear decks all look exactly the same. The link is the only thing that changes. That way I know what we do during class and what you do on your own. It's we just change the link. So I can do period 1 versus period 2, and I can do on demand, or I can do it with you live. So there's they give you a new link every time. So I have 19 of you. Let's see. For those of you that are still trying to get on, I just put the link there again. Yeah, I wanted to see what you guys put on slide 14. So when I look at slide 14, it will look like that. Yes, splendid. Yes. You guys look at what Caden says in the chat box. Good. So I'm seeing lots of dots over in community 1, which is accurate. The idea of evenness. So how many of each species do you have? But richness, what's the definition of richness? Oh, and are you using the link that I'm putting in the chat box? Because the link I put accidentally on the week at a glance is giving an error. I can fix that though too. I'll fix both of them. Oh, that's weird. It's exact same. Huh. Anyone. Somebody unmute and tell me about richness versus evenness.
Shouldn't they have even richness, since richness is just the number of species?
So what do you mean by the number of species?
It's just like if there are 4 species, it doesn't really matter what the ratio is for richness, isn't it? Then so it should be even for both, right?
Correct. Exactly. So they're exactly equal because they both have how many species? 4. So I would play. So people are kind of putting it in the middle or something, right? I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that, that these both have the same, right? When we talk about richness, because that's just counting how many different species do you have, and they both have 4. Right. So then go ahead and just pick wherever you feel like you need some work. I really like looking at these kind because I can see you circling things. Oh, nobody's doing it yet. There we go. So 7 more minutes. Who's my timer in this class? Let me know when we're at 7 more minutes. Saisha and Owen, you guys are still on slide 1, and there's nothing to do on slide 1. See, in anatomy, there's at least some Latin and Greek here, but that you could be studying. It says you're on slide 1. Let me look and find you, see if you're in 2 spots. Brianna's on slide 6, 17, 16. Let me see. Nope, nobody's on 16 at the moment. Well, it says you were on the right link, but you might, I don't know if you changed, but this is the link, and I fixed it on the week at a glance as well. I'm going to go through these and make sure that we don't have any misconceptions. All right, so the dung of the devil is a plant. Species, species, species. I was messing with this feature last period. I don't know what it shows up on your end looking like, but that I can give you guys feedback individually as well. Species is an interesting definition, and really one you guys should know about. Same population in the same time, breeding to make fertile offspring. So there's got to be several of those all have to happen. So if you would never see each other in the same area at the same time, so you come out of hibernation at different times, then you might not be the same species. And if you can't make offspring that's actually fertile and go to the next generation, it's also not a species. Yes, you just go to whatever section you feel like you need to repeat is what we're doing right now. Slide 36, let me look. Oh, the math. So the math, I can't see both at the same time though. So this is straight from your textbook. Doesn't it have a page number on it too? So if you go to that page, and I believe the answer was 0.69, but I would have to go rework it and be able to see it. But there's little boxes that give you sample problems. So make sure that, oh, it's right down here too, how to work it. So H equals a negative 0.5 times the natural log of 0.5 plus 0.5x. So this is just showing you how to actually add it up and do it. Where did I put that for you guys? It's probably in below the slide itself. I usually put answers and how to work things in the notes section. One thing we talked about last period was how you don't necessarily have to memorize some of these if you know the Latin and Greek roots. So sympatric means same fatherland. So if you are doing sympatric speciation, you're living in the same land together, right? So patriotic just means your actual land of your home, but you quit breeding. So this means that you have done something else other than get physically separated that causes you no longer to see each other as the same species. So that's those things like singing the wrong song. So I'm not going to mate with you. You don't sing the song that you're supposed to sing. You do not look attractive anymore to me as a bird species. Coming out of hibernation at a different time of the year. So I never even see you anymore because the timing's off. So all of those are things that are considered sympatric, and that's part of your web worksheet that you guys are going to look at. Allopatric is different. So that's the geography, the actual physical mountain or the river or something geographically that starts to separate you. And then you actually are in different environments with different selective pressures of who's the best adapted. So it looks like most of you are getting that question right though, which is good. On slide is that? That was slide 40. Slide. Right. Circle the common ancestor shared by both the small tree finch and the large ground finch. Where's the small tree finch is right there. And the large ground finch it looks like it's over here. So your common ancestor should be here. This is a common ancestor of everybody. I'm looking for I should have said the most recent common answer. So that's my fault because that's technically not a wrong answer. Okay, thank you, Catherine. Time is up. So we are going to stop our practice. I'm going to stop it so you're not distracted and end it and rename it so I can find it later. What is it? January what? Losing track, 11, 2021. All right, we are going to next go to your whiteboard link. So please click on the whiteboard link either on your stream page. Owen's already there, it says hi. You can get to it by week at a glance or your stream page. And that's just so that we can stop and talk about the daily video that is on the College Board site. So when we do the College Board ones, I can't embed questions, so we're gonna do it this way instead. I'm going to go to that site and share my screen again. So again, I'm doing 2.6, I think. Daily video on adaptations. All of these are visible to you. I've made a couple more of them accessible over the weekend. And I'll be pausing it to ask you some questions while she discusses this.
For the second lecture on topic 2.6, adaptation. Let's see where we're going today. Oh my goodness, we have that same enduring understanding. I hope this is really starting to make sense to you. Ecosystems have structure and diversity that change over time. Our specific learning objective is to describe how organisms adapt to their environment. We're going to do that by looking at relationships among variables in data.
All right, so there's a question real quick about our final. Your final will be worth the same amount. It just goes into the same category as all the other assessments. It isn't going to be a separate part of your grade. It will cover all 5 chapters that we've covered though, but it'll be 30 multiple choice and 1 FRQ. But as far as it having this huge impact that's separate, no, it will be just like all your other assessment grades.
And okay. The real big takeaway is that environmental changes, either sudden or gradual, can threaten a species' survival, requiring the individuals to alter their behavior, move, or perish. In other words, they have to be able to adapt. So let's take a look at an example. The rate of change, when we talk about this process of change and these disruptions happening over different timescales, it's all kind of we have to put it in context as to what that time scale is. For example, you may know that dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago when an asteroid struck the surface of the Earth, and the hot, dry climate that they were well adapted to quickly changed to a much cooler climate. Well, quickly is over still thousands of years, but when I look at that on a span of 65 million years ago, it was really just a snap in time. We also looked at polar bears and how climate change or increasing temperatures is causing a loss of sea ice, and that the polar bears depend on for survival. So the big question I want you to kind of keep in the back of your mind is, can organisms adapt before they perish? That's really what we're going to try to dig into and explain. And I'm not going to have the answer for you by the end of this lecture. When we get into populations in Unit 3, we're really going to start bringing some of these concepts together.
So our population ecology and community ecology is our next chapter as well. And the question is right now, right, with global climate change happening so rapidly, is which species are going to be able to adapt fast enough and not perish? That's both aquatic, right, changes that are happening and terrestrial changes that are happening, just because the speed at which that change is occurring.
So let's talk about habitat loss as well. That's another big disruption that can happen on different time scales. We can have deforestation that causes a very abrupt loss of habitat, or I can have an example of the catastrophic loss of habitat. And a great story to illustrate that point is the eruption of Mount St. Helens in Washington State in 1980. It was an economically and ecologically very destructive volcanic eruption. You can see in the image on the left of what Mount St. Helens looked like before the volcanic eruption. It blew out a whole large segment of that mountain, and it deposited a lot of ash material across a wide swath of land. It actually covered 11 different states. So this was a very catastrophic loss of habitat, and it's been a great case study or opportunity for biologists to go in and look at how the diversity has rebounded or recovered in that area. Let's do some practice. So we have some graphs here. I think you maybe have talked about the Galapagos Islands and the finches that lived there before. These graphs show the population and size distribution of beak sizes in a finch population on Daphne.
This is the part where we're about to use our whiteboard. So please pay attention and read the graphs, and then we're going to pause it, and I'm going to have you assess the graph.
Major, an island in the Galapagos Islands where Darwin studied. And we have two different years of data, 1976 and 1978. Now they're giving us a lot of background information that's going to help me examine this data and find a relationship. The smaller beak finches are better suited for eating grass and small seeds. The larger beaked finches are better suited for cracking large seeds and nuts. Now we have a natural disruption to the ecosystem. In 1977, in the year between when the two data sets were collected, there was a drought that took place, and the island vegetation was affected by that loss of rain. So let's dig into what the graphs are showing us. In 1976, I can see this average beak depth. By beak depth, they kind of meant like how long the beak is, how deep it went. So that's what that beak depth is measuring. And I can see it was about a 9.5 millimeters. And I can see that the population of finches with that beak size, there was about 70 finches. So in general, the population was high. This is a little bit of a confusing graph. As I go out on those parameters, I see how many finches there were with the different beak sizes. So the optimal beak size for that population, given the environmental conditions in 1976, looks like it was about 9.5 millimeters. In 1978, after the drought that changed the vegetation.
So after that change in habitat, just on the whiteboards, write what was the change that are seen in the beak depth, the number of finches. So normally we watch the video that this research is based on, which is called What Darwin Never Saw by the Grants. They published on this, and they lived on those islands for 20 some years, even with their children at times, to collect this data. So it's easy to remember, but we have not watched that. So you are going to be using these two graphs to tell a story, basically. So what happened from 1976 to 1978, according to the graph? Okay, I see Joey and Kale. Except for Joey's answer doesn't make sense. Okay, it disappeared. Good, Dominic. So get something written and submitted. And then she's gonna talk a bit more.
Notice how the
About
beak
it.
size increased a little bit. I went up to about a beak depth of about 10 millimeters, but my population decreased dramatically. So first of all, let's see if we can describe the change in average beak size after the drought.
So she pointed out something that's really important, right? Is to read both axes first. And notice what are we looking at on the y-axis, what are we looking on the x-axis. So she talked about beak depth, but also notice the scale changes here from 0 to 80 to 0 to 12. So we have massive death, okay? And whenever you see a whole population wiped out, you're gonna see big changes happen faster because all that had that trait might have died. And so the next generation is going to pass on the trait that was the survivors, and you're going to see an increase in the frequency of that gene in the population, which is evolution.
And you could say that the average beak size increased, or you could be specific and say that it increased from 9.5 to 10 millimeters.
So Dominic's saying an increase of 0.5, he would get full credit. I would be marking those and looking for the word increase, and I'd be looking for how much, which is 0.5. Okay, so very specific, very detailed as possible.
Next, describe the change in the number of finches after the drought. And again, the number of finches decreased. Now we want to see if we can go a little bit deeper and describe the relationship between beak size and the ability to withstand sudden change in climate caused by the drought. And we could conclude that finches with larger beaks were better able to withstand the change in climate caused by the drought. Explain why some finches were better able to withstand that sudden change. That's where we want to go back to the information in the article about what finches with different beak sizes were eating. And we could explain this by saying that after the drought, there probably wasn't as much for small grasses. That's what the small beaked finches were adapted to eating. And there was probably more large seeds. Therefore, if I'm explaining why, I got to keep going a little bit. Therefore, finches that had large beaks were better adapted to the new environment. We had a natural disruption to the ecosystem. There was genetic diversity in that finch population, a variety of different beak depths, and some of those finches were better adapted once the environment changed.
So in the video, what Darwin never saw, the Grants actually went there for 20 years and sifted through seeds, and they actually counted how many of these little seeds, how many of these big seeds, like what actually these finches were feeding on, as well as banding all of them, so they could watch from one generation to another generation to see whose babies were surviving, whose weren't. My biggest concern with students before they take their test is when I grade these from the nation, is kids just don't finish the concept. So they don't actually describe and explain. They try to bullet their answers. And this is one of the reasons some of you are still missing points when we do our FRQ practices. So it's not good enough to just say finches with larger beaks were better. And that's where a lot of you stop. Okay, you have to say, what are they better at? Okay, and so you finish the thought, and that's how you get your point. Explain is even more so. You can see it sounds like she's being so over the top on detailed about this, but it's not. If you don't say all these parts, that's how you lose the points. So you have to be specific that you're talking about the drought, what changed during the drought or whatever the event is. So your food source changed, and then certain finches are better adapted to that new environment. So all of those parts, if it says explain, have to be in there. So be careful on how you answer, and that being too thorough is not a thing. Be very thorough.
Had large beaks were better adapted to the new environment. We had a natural disruption to the ecosystem. There was genetic diversity in that finch population, a variety of different beak depths.
Oh, so the same question I had for the last group was watching a different video. If they did not have a beak, like if the babies or the population of finches on Daphne Major, these islands, if they didn't have one that could eat the seeds that were left after the drought, let's say that none of the babies were born with smaller beaks, what would happen to your population if you did not, if there was no variation that gave you a beak that could crack the seed during the drought? What happens? So on your whiteboard, if you do not have a variation in your population that allows you to crack the seed and eat food, or climate change happens so fast that you do not resist the acidity of the ocean and your shell falls apart, what's going to happen to your population if you don't have that variation? She said it at the beginning with the essential knowledge. So what do you guys think? What happens to you if you do not have any finches in your population that have a beak that can access the food when the habitat changes? By finches. Yeah, you die. Okay, it's called extinction. You perish. So a lot of times kids get in this way of wording an answer that they will change, like they can change on purpose, right? I can make my beak bigger and crunch harder. No, you're born with what you're born with. It's the next generation. It's the babies that survive, the people who don't perish. So if you don't have it, you don't survive. So I just want to make sure you word that correctly and think about that correctly. Evolution does not happen after you have been born and you have your genes. It's the next generation. And looking at the genes that the parents had and their gene pool compared to the parents or the genes and the offspring have.
And some of those finches were better adapted once the environment changed. So what's our big takeaway on adaptations? Well, environmental changes, either sudden or gradual, can threaten a species' survival, requiring individuals to alter their behavior. Maybe it's a behavior, maybe it's a physiological trait, move or perish. Organisms that have a selective advantage when the environment changes are going to be better at adapting and surviving. And I'd like you to go out into your community and see if you can find an example of a plant or animal that's well adapted to its particular environment.
Right. And I've already done that in my pond out front. I always think it's amazing. I cannot even see one of my goldfish. I bought them as 25 centers, and now they're, as my husband says, $2 fish. But 5 of them are orange or orange and white. Very obvious now that the lily pads are gone, right? I'm waiting for the raccoons or the hawks to find them and eat them. But one of them, unless you know it's there, you cannot see it. It looks the same green-brown color, right, as the slime in the bottom. But it will school with the others, but you don't see it at all. So I have my prediction of which one definitely is going to survive the attack of the birds, at least, and raccoons the longest. And there's all sorts of examples in nature. What I want to talk about before I forget again is both your web worksheet and your science kits to pick up. So anytime from tomorrow till the end of the month, preferably in the next couple weeks, so you can use some of these to help you understand some concepts that are on your final, you need to get your new kit. So I just want to talk about what's in here and why. There are little slips of paper that will tell you this as well. So you have a little earth ball. This is for doing some modeling and some representations of some of the global climate activities that we did, because I want you to be able to visualize it, to understand it. You're going to see 2 sets of seeds. That's because I had my daughters help me do a whole bunch that were just with sunflower seeds and a type of flower. And then I read the Native American story, Braiding Sweetgrass, and about 3 sisters, which is the green beans, the corn, and the squash. And I thought, that's cool. I want to try that. So you're going to have 2 sets of seeds, and that's because I shouldn't read books in the middle of the year and have new ideas. So you'll have 2 sets of seeds. You will have several papers, one of which is really important, which is for your parents and you to fill out. I have to have a hard copy of your original signature. So just turn that in sometime before my maintenance of certificates due, which I think is in May. But get it back to the school. And then you have cookies, because we're going to do cookie mining. Please don't eat lab supplies. We will be using these. There's 2 different brands representing 2 different types of land that you're going to ore or mine the chocolate chips out of, which will represent anything from diamonds to coal. These are way smaller than I expected, but these are shells. I found a really cool lab I want to try called ocean acidification, and we're going to look at, I really want you to understand what's happening to the calcium carbonate shells of the critters of the sea and the ocean right now. So we're going to try that lab. Oh, and then your composting soil testing kits. I did not have enough for each of you to get 2. So I had, there's 4 total that we normally use per team. And since I didn't have enough, each of you just gets 1 different kit to try. So these definitely I want back once we're face to face. The plastic part, not the little pills, but those are all for you guys and the kits to pick up starting tomorrow. So I have to go take them in today. So I just lost something. This kit might be missing one thing. Sorry, I'll find it. All right, in the last 4 minutes, if you guys are on the week at a glance, I want to talk about, just the normal place, the front of the school. There's at the office, there's a pickup window, so you can come anytime during school hours after tomorrow to the end of the month. I don't know how long they'll let me leave them there again. They made us pick up all the old ones, or they threatened to throw everything away. So I'm guessing we'll have about another month again where you guys can come and pick them up. You haven't used anything in your previous bag. You should have, because I put thermometers in there. And I remember somebody telling me that they didn't have thermometers, but that's not true because I went through every single kit and put thermometers in there. I think your guys' finals, start the 26th, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I believe, but I would have to look at the school postings. Some of you did. It was up to you to either get the bag or provide your own supplies. Yes, your finals is open notes. I'm going to try to make it similar to what the College Board's going to do, which they make it open notes, but you don't really have enough time to look up everything. 10 pages, 1 page per aquatic biome subheading. You're mainly getting pictures and things to represent the paragraph of reading that's in your book for each of those freshwater and marine water biomes. It's a regular class period. It's 30 multiple choice and 1 FRQ. 10 subheadings. Yes. Felix, you're copying and pasting. You're making a study, like a study flashcard in Book Creator. I'm glad you guys are so happy with that assignment. Okay, I have 2 minutes real quickly. I want to explain the part of this activity and the point of this web work, because I was trying to find something a little more interactive, and this is best I could do on your speciation modes. So when you click on this on the classwork tab, it will open to a worksheet that's going to go through allopatric versus sympatric speciation with you. So all you're going to do is put your name on there, save it, and go down and fill in any boxes. The part of it that I want you to kind of time and see where you're at after 30 minutes is here. This is the part I really liked. It's going to give you all the answers that go in this part with stickleback fish, ground squirrels. This is really well done. It's going to go through each barrier. They're really short, but I like all the real pictures and explanations.
Behavior.
So it just kind of goes through all of those ways that species become isolated with real examples. So that's the one part of it. I think that will take a little time because it's like 30-second clips that show you each of these different species. So that's your web work document. All right. Any questions? No questions at all? Everybody understands? Okay, Felix, don't call people dumb. Say sorry. I didn't see that because there's constant chatter going on in the text box that I cannot keep up with. And most of the time when I check it, it's nothing serious. Not that making fun of people or calling them stupid or toxic. No, we don't want to be any of those things. Stupid is not a nice word. I have my children convinced that the SH word that was bad was shut up when they were young. Now they know better, unfortunately. All right, so stupid, shut up. No, none of those are nice. All right, you guys, I will see you in a couple of days. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
you.
Hey, so is it 10 pages for book creator?
Yes, 10
Okay.
pages, but you're not doing what you were doing with those other ones. You're doing more like a page per paragraph with a picture. So you can study what a lake is versus an, I don't remember, marsh and a bog.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Do we get normal work during finals week?
No. You're not supposed to.
Thank you.